Well, later, Russia carried out a strike in Idlib, killing at least 30 militants. Moscow-based media reported the strike was carried out in the same region where the jet was shot down. Russian warships stationed at the Syrian port of Tartus fired 4 ballistic missiles, hitting militant positions. Well, a lot to dissect. So for more on this, TRT World's defence analyst Oubai Shahbandar joins me in the studio here in Istanbul. And in Ankara, we have Murat Aslan, who is a lecturer in security studies at Hasan Kalyoncu University. Let's begin, though, with you, Oubai, if we may. The downing of this plane is a fairly major development, obviously because of the geopolitical implications. For somebody who may not be familiar with what can be a very confusing situation, can you just explain it for us? Well,
this is the first time that we have verifiable information that the Syrian rebel forces, the Free Syrian Army, have been able to successfully shoot down a Russian warplane over Syrian territory. We know that just barely a few weeks ago, rebels were able to launch mortar attacks and drone attacks, destroying some Russian warplanes in the Russian permanent air base outside of Latakia province in northwest Syria. But this is the first time that a Russian bomber has been shot down by Syrian rebel forces. It happened over the Syrian city of Sarakib, which is held by the rebels, about 5 to 10 kilometers away from the closest frontline positions, where Assad's forces on the ground, supported by Russian airstrikes, are attempting to advance deeper into rebel-held territory. Of course, this whole area in northwest Syria is supposed to be part of a de-escalation zone that was negotiated by the Russians, Turkey, and Iran. But if anything, the airstrikes and the fighting has been escalating in Idlib province, and this shoot down of this Russian warplane is just one consequence of the ongoing violence in northern Syria today. And I remember when that de-escalation zone was announced, it was really, there was a lot of fanfare around it from all sides about the creation of this de-escalation zone, and look what we have now. Yeah. Murat Aslan, if I can bring you in. Given Turkey backs the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, and is working indeed with its fighters now with Operation Olive Branch, could this complicate the situation?
Well, the situation is already complicated, but there are clear indications of future engagements. If you take the north of Idlib, especially Operation Olive Branch, it's clear that Turkey will advance into the center of Afrin and later then engage with terrorists, especially in and around city. And even though we will have some casualties, Turkey is determined to clear all the area from the terrorist organization and later then occupy this land by means of Free Syrian Army, not by the Turkish army, and build a system. So escalation of the conflict means Turkey will try to build an order here and later then succeed it. So I do not see any...
Murat, if I may ask you, what though does it mean for Turkey-Russia relations, do you think? Because obviously Russia has tried to play a very large role in trying to bring about a way forward for Syria. So what does it mean for Turkey and Russia?
Well, Turkey had informed about its intention at the north in Afrin, and later then began to establish the de-escalation zone by building observation posts, and Turkey is currently about to establish the 4th one. And I believe that Turkey will continue for that, starting from the east of the region, later than going through south and the west. What I believe is that Russia and Turkey must be more coordinated, because while Turkey is involved in fighting against terrorism in Afrin, Russia should be stable at the south along with the regime. Because regime started to attack, especially the rebels at the south of Idlib. And this is against the mood of Astana.
Especially, I guess, there needs to be a lot of discussions or keeping the phone line open, as it were, particularly if instances like this happen near civilian populations, the downing of a plane near a civilian population. Oubai, I want to come back to you now. We were speaking to Sarah Firth earlier, who was on the border in Kilis, and she was talking about the kind of weaponry that the YPG has, allowing it to launch attacks. What more do we know about the kind of weaponry the YPG has, and where does it get it from?
Well, 2 things. First, we know that the anti-tank guided missile system that the YPG most likely use, it's called the Conquerors, anti-tank guided missile system. The Konkurs is an old Russian weapon system that has been sold to the Syrian regime army. It's fairly prevalent in the region. The question is, where did the YPG get it? Did it capture it from Syrian regime warehouses? Was it supplied to it by the Syrian regime or other sources? We do know that of the 10 successful uses of these anti-tank guided missile systems, most have been through the specific weapon called the Konkurs missile system. It allows the YPG forces to launch these attacks with fairly standoff approach, which means that they're able to launch them a few hundred meters away. These missiles are wire guided, so it allows them to guide these missiles to their target, which allows the YPG terrorists to use cover or high ground as they launch these weapon systems. Given the fact that most of Turkey's casualties, actually all of Turkey's casualties today have been as a result of these anti-tank guided missiles, it's certainly clear that the YPG has either a warehouse or multiple warehouses of these weapons, and they're more than likely going to use them even more in the future, both against armored vehicles and against stationary military bases being used by the Turkish forces and their Free Syrian Army allies.
Murat, if we can bring you back in, when Turkey originally launched this Operation Olive Branch, it was urged by its allies, by the international community, to keep it limited in scope and duration. But as the weeks have progressed, coming into week 3 now, it seems we're hearing that sort of rhetoric change. What do you make of the response from allies like the US?
Well, Turkey had informed all of her allies in Europe or the United States about her intention. And they had tolerated it, and they said, okay, you can do it. This is, defending your border, and you can do whatever you want, but please, in a short time period. Maybe because of their internal dynamics. But later then, we see a great pressure of PKK fans in Europe. And actually, PKK also pressed to the United States if they should support themselves in Afrin or not, because PKK is deeply in need of US support to prevent Turkish attacks in Afrin. But it's clear that the United States and the other Western countries perceive this incident as a bargaining issue, and they want to, be flexible pending to the consequences of the conflict. But I do not believe that they will not stand against this operation, because this operation is against a terrorist organization. Because today we see a video footage in YouTube. Free Syrian Army captured an office of PYD, and we witnessed the flags and the symbols of PKK. That means Turkey is currently fighting against PKK. And Western countries and the United States should review their support to PKK as a response to this action. Otherwise, terrorist organizations in the Middle East will enjoy the support of the state actors by having complicated weapon systems and also political support. It's not acceptable for states.
Of course, the information war is always a part of any conflict, and content always has to be verified, which we do take very seriously. Oubai, I want to end with you. There are so many conflicting interests in the Syrian conflict. The Syrian Democratic Forces have come out now and said its forces are involved in Afrin, further complicating things. Can you explain that for us?
Well, it's very interesting. The so-called Syrian Democratic Forces, their media center released a statement earlier today saying that their forces are involved in Afrin. Now, of course, the Syrian Democratic Forces is the cover name for the YPG. It's part of this rebranding effort supported by the United States military that fights and arms the Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, this adds a further complicating factor because it was just a few days ago that a Pentagon spokesperson said that the Syrian Democratic Forces are not involved with the YPG in Afrin, and that they would lose U.S. support if they would somehow move weapons and arms to the YPG PKK terrorists in Afrin. Yet here we are we're hearing it directly from the Syrian Democratic Forces that they've dropped all pretenses and they are one and parcel with the YPG terrorists in Afrin. How will the U.S. react? We have to wait to see, but it's certainly going to add further headache in the Pentagon and potentially another complicating factor in U.S.-Turkish relations.
A major issue, actually, given how much effort the US had put into saying that its weapons would not end up being used against Turkey. Thank you so much for that. That is TRT World's very own Oubai Shahbandar and Murat Aslan from Hasan Kalyoncu University.